Welcome back to the Creating Distance podcast hosted by TA Sales. I'm your host, Tom Alemo. Some people call me Tommy Tahoe. And each week on Fridays, we'll be bringing you an episode to break down with salespeople and sales leaders the top tips, tactics, strategies, stories that you need to get to the next level of your career and up-level yourself. So let's get into it.
It is December and the hustle is on, but there's a lot of myths about what it is to sell at the end of the year, and we are about to debunk some myths. So before we dive in, you guys know the drill. I'm going to introduce him, the man, the myth, the legend, the founder of TA Sales, Tom Alemo, aka Tommy Tahoe. Welcome back.
I'm excited to be here, man. It's the best time of year to sell.
I pump you up all over the place. The best lesson I ever learned from Tom was champions create distance on Fridays. If you don't know about this, go sign up for Tom's newsletter. We'll put links everywhere for you guys to go follow Tom. But I love Tom. Everybody needs Tom in their life. Scan this QR code. Check us out, sellbetter.xyz. While you're there, hop over to the YouTube channel and subscribe. That's where you're going to get all the latest, greatest tips, techniques, tactics, takeaways, and templates. I've gotten really good at that. That one flows really nice for me now. All right. Big thanks to our partners. You guys know that we partner up with the best tech in the world. Shout out to our friends at Aligned. They are giving our audience, anybody in our audience, anybody at all, can get 4 free deal rooms for life. No strings attached. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. No one will ask you a question. And if you go to the link that we are now dropping in the chat for you, you will be able to get those for absolutely no charge at all, as well as the templates that Will and Jed and Leslie Douglas put together to go along with that, right? Close more deals using these deal rooms with Aligned. Shout out to our friends at Aligned. This is what you're going to get from me and Tom today. We're going to talk about end of year closeout tactics. I'll probably say a few funny things that you'll resonate with. It looks like a lot of SDRs and AEs are in the room. No shock there. Shout out to the senior leaders in the room, 17%. Drop your city in the chat. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We want to hear where you're coming from. We have a lot of international folks that come. Shout out to Tom in Chicago. We just got to have a great dinner with Jason Bay and the crew. What a great dinner. Just a few months back. That was a lot of fun. LA, I see you. Manchester United, what's going on? Our international crowd reps, dude. I love it. They show up from all over the world. It's amazing. Spokane, what's poppin'? I see you. Okay, we're going to talk about holiday prospecting. Put a 1 in the chat if you are getting ghosted now because it's December, but you bet on this month, and you thought you were going to be able to pull those last few out to win it, and you're having a tough time. Put a 1 in the chat. If that's you, it's totally fine. No one judging you here. Q1 prep moves. Put a 2 in the chat if you are all set and you're focused on Q1 of the following year. You need this January to be stellar. That's a 2. Becca Falk with the 1.5. I love her. Okay, Tom, let's get into it. I want to talk a little bit about what you began with. Nice little grammar move there. Begun with, swum. Is it swam? Is it swum? These are great techniques that everyone should be focusing on in Q4. So break these down. I especially like number 3. We haven't heard about it in a while.
Cool. Yeah. So I'll just rip down 1 through 5.
You can. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. We could jam out on each one. I mean, so first and foremost, when I think about December and Q4, it's all about where you're going to spend your time. It's craziness with, new deals are coming into the fold. Oftentimes you're in crunch time for hitting quota or a goal or an accelerator or something that you're pushing for. Meanwhile, you're trying to, have holiday time with your family. You're also prepping ahead for next year. There's a lot going on at this time of year. So the number one thing that you want to make sure you do is really have an emphasis on qualifying on your deals, right? So uncomfortable conversations, tough questions that you might not want to ask on a first call. I'm gonna front load some of those questions and just try to get an understanding on timing, on is there a critical event, is there urgency, and so a phrase that I use a lot, James, like I just say, hey, look, I want to match your urgency. So if you're telling me that this is something that is a number one, key one priority that needs to get done before the end of the year, I'm here for you. Let's get it done. I can move fast. I work all time zones. Let's make it happen. If you say, hey, look, I'm just kind of like trying to learn a little bit. This is going to be something that gets done probably in like February, March. Cool. Like, let's take our time. But also, I'm not going to spend a lot of time in December with you, Jane. I'm not going to have 6 calls with you in December if this isn't a project for another quarter or 2. And that's okay. I really need to make sure that I'm prioritizing my time, asking direct questions, asking maybe uncomfortable questions to figure out where people are because I can't create urgency for them. And just because we get off a call and you're really nice to me, that's not the reason for me to go to my manager and say, hey, we've got a deal for Q4.
Yeah.
Right. I need to have some of those more tangible evidence that there's something going here with a critical event that's going to drive the urgency for this quarter. Otherwise, cool. I'm going to need deals next year too. Let's push this one out.
You said a couple of things there that caught my attention. I learned from John Barrows very early when I started working with him. You can't create urgency. That's actually something that we've been saying for many years in sales that is a myth. One of the many myths of Q4 is that we can create some sort of urgency in the last month of the year and be like, oh, you have to do this. And this is probably best denoted by like, I can save you 20% if you sign this week. Right. And like,
Yep.
I appreciate the fact that you're avoiding using the discount there, but you're trying to create some sort of sense of urgency that is not yours to create. You don't own that, right? So you're
Yep.
saying you can drive it, and I think that's completely different. So it's an important thing to note. What about pressure? What if that's true, and we're trying not to create urgency because it's not possible? Where is the pressure? Is it on them, and it's our job to uncover it? Is that the deal?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like pressure to like where to pressure test on the deal and like where to kind of push and pull, is that what you mean by that?
I think so. Yeah. I
Yeah.
often feel like salespeople are trying to pressure or convince or
Yeah. Yeah.
persuade
Yeah. Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
to sign an agreement, somebody to
Yeah.
pay a bill, right? Or pay for that trial start, that pilot, right? Okay,
Yeah.
fine. But it's not your pressure that matters. Putting pressure down on your prospects not right, right? That's the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there
Yeah.
is a
Totally.
pressure to be found.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think like to me, pressure, when we're talking about pressure, that I directly relate that with like closing. And closing,
Mm,
at the end of a call, closing a next step or not, closing a deal or not, closing, booking a meeting on a cold call or not. That should be the natural byproduct from what happens the other 95% of the conversation. So, let's paint two pictures here, James. Like we get on a discovery call, and in one case, you come in and you say, "Hey, Tom, I'm running my sales team. We're not gonna hit our goals this year. We've got a huge kickoff coming in January. I got to get this thing sorted out. I've got to figure out my plans before Christmas, or I'm completely screwed." And then I feel like you're jiving with what I say. I'm gonna push you on the next step. I am gonna put, maybe pressure's not the right word, but I'm gonna move with speed and urgency because money loves speed.
yeah.
And if I'm getting from you that there's urgency, I need to match that. I'm not gonna say, "Hey, let's chat next week." I'm gonna say, "Hey, let me put something together. I can chat with you later today." Right? Like I'm going to move quickly. In a second case where you say, hey, look, we're just starting to look at this. There's no real project coming up, but like I think our team needs to get better, generally speaking. Like, all right, like there might be something there, but I'm not going to try to come up with a reason out of thin air that you need to sign the contract by the end of December. I think
Yeah.
everything comes down to what I'm learning on the discovery call, and the better questions I ask, the better information I can work with. And that's part of the art. The science is like the questions you ask, and the art is then being able to have the emotional intelligence to say, in one case, I am going to push because it's what's right for the customer.
Mm.
And in another case, I'm not going to push because in that case, that's what's right for the customer. That's what a great salesperson does.
What's right for the customer should be the focus, and I think our money, which is the win, comes as a result of the focus being on that customer and what's right for them. I put a quote in the chat right there for everybody to go and copy. Please credit Tom Alemo for Money Loves Speed. That's a bumper sticker for any seller in the game. I want to talk about this last one, number 5, because if you're in
Yeah.
sales, no doubt about it, without a question, I've been in this game for 20 years and I still struggle with being consistent and persistent and not letting deals go and not letting my follow up fall off and how to prioritize those. I don't care what your method of working this is. It is a challenge for every seller on earth, regardless. What are some tips you have for persistence and prioritization?
Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, I remember seeing some Gong data a while ago that talked about, there's the common phrase of like time kills deals, which is true. But
Number
the
one.
but the but the data showed not just time, momentum is what actually
Mm,
killed deals. And they looked at how frequently was there communication between a prospect and the salesperson. And so it wasn't that the deal lasted 2 months longer. It was, well, we haven't heard from them for 2 months. And
mm,
so to me, like whether or not I'm hearing back from someone is an indicator of it indicates something. It indicates like, Maybe is there an issue with timing? Is there an issue with interest? Am I even talking to the right person? And
Yep.
so like I would go through those questions with myself. If I have a deal and let's say I haven't heard from them in 3 weeks, the question I'd go back to the drawing board. I'd go watch my calls and I'd say, number one, is there an event? Is there any urgency from their side to move on this? If no, that's probably why you're getting ghosted. If yes, move on to the next question. Okay, am I talking to the right person? Am I talking to the person that is going to make a move on this? If yes, okay. If no, I need to go find the right person. And so if I'm talking to the CEO, they tell me they need to get this done before the end of the year. Then, like, to me, those are indicators like I need to maybe keep pushing, but I might ask a question in my follow up. I might try texting. I might try calling. I might go LinkedIn. I'm going to
Mm.
stay on it. But if I can look back and say, oh man, James was nice to me, but like there really isn't a critical event, and he's like the assistant to the regional manager,
That is me
and
for
like
sure.
he's a few levels below where we need to get to. I
Definitely.
might need to take a step back and I might need to go multi-thread and be a little bit more strategic about this deal. So no shots to you on that. But I wanna kind of feel it out because I shouldn't just blindly follow up, but I shouldn't give up on a good deal either. Just, I want to have some data that guides me in a direction.
People like me are great for springboards into conversations. I am very forthcoming with
Mm,
information. And because of that, I will often tell people, I'm not actually the decision maker here. I will point you in the right direction, but let's have a conversation so that I can make sure that what I'm putting in front of my people is actually worth their time. Right. And
yep.
that's me as a champion saying, I think this is valuable. And then I make an introduction. Now, where it goes from there, people understand that your champion has a limited amount of control over where it goes from there. The rest of that is on you without a shadow of a
Yep.
doubt. All right,
Yep.
let's. I want to remind everybody the Q and A is down at the bottom. If you have a question for Tom, or if you just want to say, "Hey Tom, I
Love the
struggle
Q&A.
with X," right? Throw it in the Q and A. We're gonna have time at the end, I guarantee it. And that is my favorite part of the show is answering your questions. So please throw your questions in the Q and A. Now, well, a lot of SDRs in the room, a lot of AEs being asked to prospect more than ever before. Q4, not an exception to that. AEs everywhere trying to prospect. Focus, you say, is one of the main skills to drill in. Talk to me about how we can get better at focusing and what we should be focused on.
Yeah, well, I mean, believe it or not, for everyone out there, Q1 will still exist, and you will need pipeline and deals in Q1. As
For
much
sure.
as your boss is pushing on Q4 deals and pipeline and stuff like that, we're going to need deals in Q1. So, the best sellers that I know have the discipline to find time to prospect, even when there's craziness going on in Q4. So, the easiest way that I found for this is just a simple making sure that I'm sticking to what my commitments are each week of, all right, how many times can I go outbound, creating my list, making calls, sending emails, using LinkedIn, whatever the tactics are, but making sure that you're still putting in the time to get, whatever inputs that you need to keep getting meetings going. And
Mm,
it's easy when you have big deals on the table and like even if you're having a killer Q4 to ease off the gas. That's the natural response is like, well, I don't want a cold call. I don't want to prospect. I'm killing it right now, or I'm stressed because of this deal. But you're doing future you a favor by putting in the time now. And it's actually an amazing time to prospect because which we'll get into, is that like people don't probably want to take a meeting in December if it's not priority, which is tough for the BDRs if you got that monthly quota. But
mm.
if you're future into January, your January can get stacked, absolutely stacked by whatever you do this month because people will say, let's connect after the holidays. Cool, James. How's the fifth? How's the sixth? Whatever it might be, and you get them on the calendar and start the quarter on a super high note.
So I think this is a really smart plan here. And I also want to point at the fact that a lot of our prospects in December are going to say things to us like, this is a better initiative for Q1, or can you reach out in Q1? You need to say yes. You can say, why is Q1 the time? You can say, no problem. I hear that a lot. Is there something that's big in Q1 that makes a difference here? These are good questions to ask. What you don't want to do is try to force the hand.
Yeah.
That's the thing that people run away screaming from. And I make this analogy all the time. You're on the lot. You want to buy the new car. You're test driving vehicles, but you see the salesperson on the lot and you lock eyes with them. And the first thing you think is, everybody go ahead. I got to get out of here before this person talks to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This is the
Yeah.
thing.
Becca.
Yes,
Yeah.
Becca, exactly. That's how you
Becca
feel,
gets it.
right? Here they come. And they're like vultures,
Becca
right?
gets it.
Here they come. And they're like vultures. They swarm around, yeah, Jaws theme music. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is what you don't want to be viewed at as in December. Nothing wrong with setting tasks and following up. Is there a cheerful tone? You brought up this always be prospecting piece, Tom, and I really want
Yeah.
to talk about that gentle, fun, jolly old tone that comes along with the holidays. I think this works to our advantage.
I mean, here's the thing is like I would recommend that you always use that tone. Like the
Okay.
sale if sales is the transfer of enthusiasm, anytime I'm talking to a prospect, whether it's a message or a video or a call, like I want to be upbeat, I want to bring some positivity, I want to bring, some energy as to like why I think I can potentially change their business. If I'm coming in monotone or I'm coming in bland and vanilla, then I probably don't deserve the meeting that I'm trying to get. So with that said, like could you do some extra little, hum alongs for the holiday? You definitely could. Like I personally am not sending a bunch of like holiday memes and gifs and a
Mm.
video with me with a Santa hat. But that's not necessarily like my vibe, but I've seen it work for sure. I've got a buddy that I remember last year. He had something where he had like a GIF of Santa writing his list, and like and then he tied that into a cold prospecting of like, let me help you with your list of how we can secure your whatevers, and he cleaned up with it, and it worked well. So I do think like you can have stuff like that. You can bring that up on a cold call. Hey, 17 days till the holidays or whatever. Like I think that's all good stuff and it's all, can be cheery, but I think that should be your overall vibe every day.
Yeah, I mean, I want to agree with you and say that I am a fairly cheerful individual. I do tell
You
a lot of
are.
jokes. I do, when I reach out, I ask questions like big plans for the holidays, got a lot of family coming in, and
Yep.
these are great, like quick one-liners that people are used to responding to. We have a few folks that come in from here and there, and you say, oh, I've been up there before. It's a beautiful place. Where do they live? Good conversation for that. If you're calling into an industry that appreciates small talk, a region that appreciates small talk, this is a great way to lean into the
Yeah.
holiday, go ahead and drop the guard. It's okay, right? And
Well,
I've had some success by saying this is not like a hard pitch, and people are they appreciate that because nobody likes to be pitch slapped. Probably my favorite
well,
term
it's
in sales.
it's also everything is contextual. All the advice that we're giving is contextual. And so like for example, if I'm calling into, a blue collar industry in the southeast, like I'm gonna have like an extra rapport building. If I'm calling pizza shop owners in New York City, I'm getting straight to the point. I'm not messing with any Mariah Carey, BS as part of my Merry Christmas cold call opener. So if I'm chatting with someone on LinkedIn, I can have a little bit more, ease and like a little bit more back and forth. If I'm sending a cold email, I'm getting straight to the point. So I think all of this should be like taken with context, and the best prospectors they know the mind of who they're talking to, and they know the platform that they're reaching out to them on, and they can adjust how they make a call versus a LinkedIn versus a video versus something else.
Yeah. I think that if you know this, I see this all the time in so many different contexts, it seems like it fits, but know your prospect. Know your
Yes.
industry, know how are going to respond to a specific approach. I try to make this difference between adjusting your approach and changing who you are. Don't change who you are. That's going to come off
Yeah,
really inauthentic, even in the holiday season. But adjust your approach, right? That's a different
for
thing.
sure. Totally. Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Glenn, with your question. I am happy to field it in the chat for you. So if you have a question and you're having a hard time with Q&A, apparently some folks are having a difficult time, by all means, throw a question in the chat. I'm happy to field it for us. Okay, let's talk about this piece of it because I think this piece is probably a good place to park it for a while. This is the reset, prep, and setup for Q1. December is a time, especially mid to late December, when people start to check out. This is a
Yep.
time for reflection. What are we gaining from that reflection, Tom?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. Like the first step there's a few steps that I would personally do. So the first is I just want a clean house as we get closer to the end of this month. So,
Yeah.
things like I'm cleaning up my pipeline, I'm cleaning up my CRM, I'm cleaning up my calendar, I'm
Mm.
zeroing out the inbox, I'm doing all those things that feel disorganized. Those weeks of the holidays where things might not be popping off as much, but you are logging in. it can just help you to clean some of those things up so that you can move more quickly when the new year starts. And then we get to like the point of reflection. And everyone in here is in sales or in sales leadership. It's part of your career. And so, come January, your company is going to give you a quota. That's everyone here. They're going to have a quota that's going to be handed to you. You're going to have little say in what that number is.
Anybody
Um,
already gotten their 2026 quota? Let me know in the chat, yes or no, if you've already been handed your 2026 quota. Oh, we
All
got
right,
some
Margaret.
yeses coming
Margaret's
in.
got it.
Margaret.
In the all caps makes it seem like she's not happy with what the quota was. But
I
we'll
was gonna
we'll
say
let
it
you
too.
we'll let you read into that. However, but I mean, usually you don't always get it until the new year. But where I'm going with that is like you're going to get your quote. Let's say, your team's going to say, "Hey, you got to sell $1 million next year, James." But that's what your company wants. That's not necessarily your goal, right? Your personal goal, like in my opinion, I use four buckets that I set goals in that all start with F because I like acronyms. And so I've got one in the finances bucket, which is like work. How much do I want to make? Do I want to get a promotion? Do I want to gain a new skill? Do I want to start a new company? What do I want professionally? I got a family and friends bucket. I've got a fitness, which is like mental health, physical health, spiritual health. And then there's a fun bucket of hobbies, traveling, whatever things that you like to do. And so what works for me, this isn't necessarily what works for you. I spend a lot of time thinking about that. And if I could only pick one thing in each of those buckets, because focus really matters for what we're trying to achieve. Um, how could you pick one thing in each of those buckets that you want to attack for next year? So I'll give an example since we're talking about sales. Um, Person A could just not think about any of this stuff. They show up on January 5th. James tells me, "Hey, Tom, your quota's $1 million." And I just go off and say, "Sounds good." And I'm going to do my best to get to that goal and not really think about it. Okay, that's an option. Person B might take a second to think about that, and they know their comp plan, and they know the company that they're working at, and they know the opportunity, and they might say, "Hey, look, I actually have 100 grand in student debt that I need to pay off, and I know my variable comp plan, and like my goal is to like absolutely crush it next year, and I'm going to pay off all 100K of that, and I'm going to be debt free, or I want to buy my first house, or." Me and my spouse are expecting a baby, and we need to like up our income for that, or whatever. I want to, I've really want to get into a management role, and so I need to prove to my boss that I'm ready to take on that management role. Whatever it is for you, they come up with an actual plan of like where they want to get to, and then what does that mean every single month? What do I need to have done? And then map that into like your daily routine. So if there's a sales goal, that's easy. You can use some sales math to get there. If it's a
Back into it.
career path goal, there might be things that you need to show your manager that prove that you're ready to take that next jump or whatever it might be. And so, most people don't think about that stuff, and then they wonder why they're not at a certain place. But the first step is that you got to plan it out, and then you got to, obviously work super hard and strategically to get to whatever that goal is. But the holidays are just an amazing time to do that because things are a little bit slower, and there's the calendar year coming up, and there's all this momentum that you can build on, and it's some of my favorite stuff to do.
Great stuff right there, Tom. I've got a relevant question from Jamie Chapman. Jamie, thank you for being the first person to ask a question.
Jamie.
Jamie Chapman says, how would you arrange and track those buckets you mentioned?
Great question. So I'm sure there's more technically advanced ways than what I do, but I'm a big nope. I don't go anywhere without this notebook. And so what I do is every single week on Sunday, I write down here's my goal for each of those buckets, and then here are the things that like I'm gonna do this week to try to move those forward a little bit. So if there's a
Mm,
fitness goal, it's like, hey, I'm gonna get my 4 sessions in the gym. I'm not gonna eat ice cream, and what I'm gonna try to get 7 hours of sleep, whatever the things are. And then at the end of the week, I say, did I accomplish those kind of mini goals? And am I getting closer to the main one, or do I need to change course? So for me, that's just like pen and paper. I like to do a vision board. I'm sure some people have apps and cool ways to track it, but that's not quite my style.
All right, Jamie, I am a HubSpot guy, and you can manage a pipeline and have a vision board. So you can like arrange it in a list view, or you can have like columns, and those columns
Mm.
have ways that you can label them. Yes, Don hit it. Notion is also a
Yeah.
great way to do it. I'm very familiar with
Yeah.
Notion.
Respect.
That's huge right there. Okay, last 5 minutes. That's our question that we have from Jamie. I want to show everybody an example. You guys know I'm big on examples. This is a real example, and here's why I chose it. Everybody has this idea that people don't schedule new meetings in December. I scheduled this December 1st, right? Just last week. And look, I just went out to a CEO who then looped in his person that I sell to. And I met them in person like 3, 4 months ago in at Inbound, right? People believe that our prospects check out for the holidays. That might be true to a degree. But if what you're saying is relevant, notice my opener here. This is not a pitch in December. That's my opener. So already he's like, guard down. It's okay. It's not a pitch. And right there is a great way to just be that thing that when they scan their inbox and they look, yeah, the subject line for that, I'll have to send it to you. So hit me, Margaret, on LinkedIn, and I'll get you that subject line. It's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head because all that happened in HubSpot. So, but I wanted to show that example. Tom, you're scheduling meetings.
Yeah.
You're moving the needle. Talk to me about closing things and scheduling new meetings right now and balancing that time in December. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, the other like on top of like what you're thinking about, I think the framing of, hey, we're working with a lot of teams as they prepare to do X in the new year. Like you're
Mm,
framing up like what does your buyer do in the new year? You know, if you're selling tax software versus you're selling to principals at schools versus a chief marketing officer, all those people do different things in the new year. Their years look different. So for me, I sell to sales leaders. There's a very specific mindset they have going into the year. They're doing sales kickoffs, they're doing forecasting, they're planning out how they're going to enable their team. It's a beautiful time to sell what I'm selling. And so I'm using that framing. And if I was in your case, James, like, and I start talking about next year, I'd say, hey, cool. Happy to chat January 7th. I might even throw this out and say, hey, I got us time for the 7th. By the way, if this is something that you're, really thinking about a lot, I do have some availability the next couple of weeks if you do want to chat this year. Otherwise, happy to catch you in January. So like even this that little line of like because there might be some people that weren't thinking about it and then they're like, oh, actually, you know what? Like I will. That's a good idea. I should maybe talk about this now. And you might sneak a couple into December, especially if you're on like a December quota booking kind of thing as a BDR. To try to use it that way.
I like those tips there. John Messick wants to know if
Yeah.
we have any messaging examples for pre or post holiday. I'll give a couple of
Yep.
post holiday things I do that are pretty helpful. In January when I come back, I'll typically start an email off or just my first touch to a cold prospect is just 2026 is the year starting off the way you thought it would. That's a great
Mm.
email, right? It's really short. It's one sentence. It's easy to say, who's this person? I find that those people will often end up visiting my LinkedIn profile, which will cause me to send a connection request. We'll then connect in the DMs, and then a real conversation can start. That's a very common flow for me at the beginning of every year. How you like that, Tom?
I love that one. I might steal that. Here's something that I like around the holidays. It's not messaging per se, but it's targeting. Is I love the green bubble strategy on LinkedIn.
Oh yeah,
So you go in there, and when you go through your DMs, you can see if someone's got a filled in green bubble. That means they're online right now. So if it's a little slow and it's like December 27th, and it's like, are they working? Are they not? And I see James has his LinkedIn thing lit up, and I've been hunting him down. I might just be like, like I might shoot him a little, just like one liner, because I know he's probably got it a little light today, but he's online, he's on LinkedIn doing his thing. So I might try things like that. Otherwise, I don't. I really like your idea. Um, I don't know if I have like specific post holiday messaging other than trying to go back to what their priorities were if I'm going on like a closed lost opportunity and hey,
yeah,
6 months ago you mentioned this. Is that part of your Q1 strategy? Things like
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Some people will say, "Did you ever solve that problem?" And that's a great CTA because then you get the whole history.
Uh
They will vent in all the ways they failed to solve that problem.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Okay,
love
so
that.
Tom, as always, this is a real pleasure. Y'all, please thank Tom for coming to the show, sharing his December strategies with you. Let's connect.
Thanks for checking out that episode. Two quick things as a takeaway. Number one, we would feel honored if you left a review wherever you're listening to this podcast, if it's on Spotify or Apple or YouTube, to just let us know how we're doing, what else you'd like to see. If you'd like to learn more about us, you can check us out at tasales.co. Love to hear from you there. Much love. Have a great week.